Hello everyone and welcome to Cinderful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're all fighting that war against the Grey. Today we've got a video for you about 5 armies that are great for your first Warhammer Age of Sigmar event. What exactly are we looking for in armies that are going to be great for your event? Well, it's worth noting that most Warhammer Age of Sigmar match play events at least are generally around 2,000 points. These are generally referred to as grand tournaments, though there are one-day events that you'll hear people say or call as one-dayers. So, what exactly do we need in an army to be great for your first event? Well, first of all, we're looking at an army that is cheaper than everything else. So this means it's got to have access to a start collecting box that is good value and is going to give you models that you're wanting to use. Either this or it's going to need to be low model count, which means it's going to have less models in the army, so you're going to need to purchase less models. We're also going to look for the army to be easy to paint. Now, this can be that it's a very simple scheme, using lots of effective techniques to get that scheme on the table really quickly. So dry brushing, washing, contrast method, all of those are definitely things we're looking at here, but also a minimum amount of different models as well. So while you might have maybe a more complicated model in the army, there is the same model over and over again. So this allows you to batch paint or to get better at doing the model one at a time, so that your speed in painting that model becomes quicker and quicker, enabling you to get the army on the tabletop nice and quick. We are looking though for armies that have less intricate detail, so we're looking for armies with less embellishments. This doesn't mean that we can't have armies with nice detail, but we're looking for ones that don't have lots of little fiddly bits here and there, you know, like gemstones everywhere or little dangly bits of metal all over their cloth. Armies with lots of filigree or that sort of stuff is quite easy, because then you can just put over that a single color and dry brush on some texture onto that, which makes it really easy to get that on the tabletop nice and quick. We're also looking for an army that is competitive, obviously, because we're wanting to be able to do well at your first event. You're not wanting to go with an army that's just going to get wiped off the table. So we're definitely looking at armies that are at least mid-table competitive and are hopefully going to be able to take you 2 wins and 3 losses, or 3 wins and 2 losses. That's what we're aiming for. Along with this, though, we are aiming for an army that is easy to play. We don't want an army that's going to have lots of bookkeeping, say, spoiler alert, Caradron Overlords or Lumineth Realmlords, where there is lots of little things to take care of, like the Aether Shares and the Aether Quartz and all sort of stuff like that. We're also looking just for very simple rules. We want a simple playstyle to be able to play through, and so generally in this you'll find combat armies are a very dominant feature in this list of 5, mainly because the whole idea of running across the table and charging your enemy and smashing your enemy is a very simple game style. Some armies do this really well and can actually be really competitive in just doing this very simple playstyle, so that will be a prominent feature in the list. But let's get looking into 5 armies that are great for your first Warhammer Age of Sigmar event. Number 1 on this list we have Ogor Mawtribes. Why are Ogor Mawtribes a great army for your first Warhammer Age of Sigmar event? Well, to start off with, they're cheap. They have a really fantastic start collecting box, which is going to knock down the cost of your army. In fact, you can build the entire army for your Ogor Mawtribes army solely with this start collecting box. There is no reason to ever purchase another kit to get your first army on the tabletop nice and quick and ready for an event. The start collecting box features one of the large bestial monsters available to the Ogor Mawtribes, and it is a dual kit that either gives you the option for Stonehorn or Thundertusk mounts for either Huskars or Frostlords or Beast Riders. What's great about this is you can purchase realistically 4 of these boxes and have a army, and actually have more than a army, have multiple different armies that you can play around with. The Mournfang Cavalry actually become really good in particular builds of Ogor Mawtribes, depending how you've built your army, but realistically it's all about those monster trucks, the big monsters, that is going to form the focus of your army. The army is easy to paint. There's a lot of texture on them. Skin goes up really easy with a lot of contrast, and the ogres don't have an overly large amount of little intricate details on them, and the large mounts are big furry monsters, so get dry brushed really easy and take contrast really well as well. They have a really easy to play playstyle as well, where it is literally, let's run the monsters forward and go smash our enemy. This is what we want in an army, and it does so really effectively with those monsters. They're able to pack out a ton of damage in multiple different builds, and they've also got some good survivability. So just a really simple playstyle, and they're really competitive as well. Ogres will just punch across the table, smash your opponent, and if your opponent can't handle it, you're going to win. And even then, your opponent has to actually kill you back, which is easier said than done when dealing with Ogor Mawtribes. Next up, number 2, for an army that's great to go to your first event with, we have Ironjawz. And yes, I understand Ironjawz are rather a sort of sub-faction of the Auric Warclans book, but I'm really suggesting Ironjawz for a few big reasons. Number 1 is they're easy to play, unlike potentially Big War. Big War requires you to have a little bit of list building ideas to start with, and doesn't really have the simplicity of list building like Ironjawz does, where you've also in-game got to keep track of your Big War points, while Ironjawz have a much simpler allegiance ability called Smashing and Bashing, which is really fun and really good on the tabletop. Ironjawz, though, are still fantastic. They lose absolutely nothing in competitiveness, not being Big War, and sometimes even gain more. But the big thing that they get is that they have an access to, once again, a fantastic start collecting box. This box set gives you Gore Grunters, gives you a War Chanter, and gives you some Ardboys, all of which are fantastic choices for your Ironjawz. You can add in a Maw Crusher if you want, though there is no actual need to. You can continuously buy that start collecting box a few more times and get a really solid foundation of an army. In fact, you'd even make use of all the heroes in there, because you could easily field 2 to 3 War Chanters in a competitive Ironjawz army. The army is really easy to paint, with large panels of metal going down with a single base color really easy, and if you use metallics they wash really well, or contrast can put color down on that really easy. Contrast is also great for doing their skin. Orc flesh is green, so there's some fantastic green contrast paints available that make painting them a really easy process. They don't have a lot of detail on them either. There's not a lot of little embellishments or anything like that. You've just got some bone, and you can easily do even some freehand and still get this army done in a really quick time frame. All in all, though, Ironjawz just are an absolutely fantastic army to get at your first event. They'll be fun to play. They like running across the table, punching your opponent in the face, and they're going to be quick and easy and cheap to get on the tabletop as well. Number 3, we have the Flesh Eater Courts. Now, this one might seem strange in some ways to some people, as this army does feature a summoning mechanic within it, but we'll get into explaining that in a second. So, to start with, this army is extremely cheap to get. There is a fantastic start collecting box, once again, for this army. That gives you all the big monsters you need, along with some troops that actually become your summoning. So, there's actually some really cool lists within Flesh Eater Courts that allow you to run the vast majority of your army actually as the big giant monsters, and many times actually take them as battle line options for your force as well. What's really cool is a lot of these models that come along with them, the ghouls and either crypt flayers or crypt horrors, can be summonable, and so you can use those as your summoning already gotten with your start collecting boxes, all nice and wrapped up there in one single purchase. You can purchase this box 3, 4 times even, 4 if you're wanting to build a full 2,000 point army out of them, but realistically you probably want 3 and grab a few extra little pieces like the Abhorrent Arch region and the Endless Spells there as well. You may want to grab a few extra little pieces here and there for some additional summoning, but really you're not going to need much more than the start collecting boxes. The army is really easy to paint. Contrast goes really well over those ghouls and the large areas of flesh, and even the big monsters like the Terrorgeist and zombie dragons don't require that awful amount of effort to get painted up. Contrast can do a lot of the work for you. There isn't a lot of detail besides bone really on a lot of the models, and bone once again just goes really easy either with just base coating and washing or contrast. The army is really simple to play. It charges forwards and it murders stuff. That is literally all there is to do with Flesh Eater Courts. There's some really cool little things you can do with your summoning mechanics, summoning stuff around the board as need be, and this gives you a little bit more of an edge and maybe a little bit more learning curve in some instances, but the Terrorgeists are just going to do a lot of work, and they are realistically the models I suggest building from your start collecting boxes rather than the zombie dragons. At least if you're going to build more Terrorgeist than Zombie Dragons. The army is extremely competitive. When those Terrorgeist charge, they get to double pile in and fight twice, which is awesome. And all in all, it's just a really great army to go play in your first event with. They'll definitely serve you really, really well. Number 4, we have Idoneth Deepkin. Now, this one is a little bit different to the rest. First of all, the Start Collecting box is not a necessity to grab this army. Although, if you wish, you can easily pick up a couple of those Start Collecting boxes. You'll still save money buying Eels and Thralls in the Start Collecting box than you will purchasing them separately. And you get some Soul Renders who, while aren't a fantastic hero, aren't actually losing you any money purchasing them with the Start Collecting box. So you're losing nothing there. But the reason I suggest Idoneth Deepkin as an army to take to your first event is they are good, and they always have been since their release. Eels are a fantastic unit, and as mentioned, you can get armies painted up really quickly if you're painting a lot of the same model, so Idoneth Deepkin armies really take advantage of this. Idoneth Deepkin armies that are at a competitive level are going to feature a lot of Eels. By Eels, we mean either the Achelian Guard or the Morsar Guard. Ishleyan Guard or Morsar Guard. Achelian Guard are what they both are, but Eel armies are just a fantastic army on the tabletop. They're really, really powerful. They've got some cool tricks you can play with them if you go purchase, say, a Soul Scryer in addition, where you can bring your Eels across the board, but there is really no need for that. Eels are flying models with a really long movement range. They're going to get into combat turn 1 whether they start on or off the board. As mentioned, they're easy to paint because you're going to be painting a lot of the same model with this army, and so you can use the same techniques over and over again. And while maybe the riders have a little bit more detail, Eels themselves can paint it up really quickly, so you're going to get 50% of the model done really quick. The armor can be done quite quickly though. They've got a large amount of flesh on the models as well, and they've not got an awful lot of detail like some other elven armies do. There's not much bookkeeping to do rather than just remembering your turn number to make sure you've got that turn 3 in mind when the whole army can attack first, which makes them really, really powerful. But Idoneth Deepkin for me are just a fantastic army. Whether you're going to go buy your Eels separately or pick up a Start Collecting box or 2 or 3, it doesn't really matter. The army is not going to cost you an awful lot, though it is probably in the more expensive range of the ones we've mentioned so far in this video. And number 5, we have Seraphon. So to start with, Seraphon actually have 2 Start Collecting boxes, and both of them are very good value. All the units in both boxes are going to be useful, however they're going to be useful in different builds. Seraphon itself is split into 2 major sort of sub-factions that have sub-factions of themselves, and yes, I get this sounds complicated, but it really isn't once you get reading that battle tome. Coalesced wise, these are the more savage Seraphon. You're going to want to pick up the actual Start Collecting Seraphon box set, while if you're going, say, more Starborn, you're probably going to want to pick up the Start Collecting Skinks box set. Although, if you're looking for that Bastillodon, that will still serve as well in a Thunder Lizard's army, which is a great Seraphon army to put on the tabletop. The army is really easy to paint, like really, really easy. Contrast and dry brushing is all you need to paint up this entire army. Add in a few metallics on top of that and it's done. It's so simple to do. While they do have a decent amount of detail on a few of the models, this can all be done really quickly because just the vast majority of these models is going to be done up so quickly. And the army plays really simply. Starborn Seraphon plays a little bit more difficult and does have a lot of summoning mechanics on top, so probably that would be the one I would suggest to avoid. But Coalesced Seraphon, especially if you're going to go into a Thunder Lizards build, or even Coatlal's Claw using a ton of the Saurus Cavalry models, the Saurus Knights, you're going to have just an easy army to push across the tabletop that will do really, really well. While the Coalesced are probably not the more competitive build of the Seraphon, they're still decent and they still hit like a truck. The -1 damage that they take is just absolutely amazing and makes them stay so much longer on the table than you would think by just such a simple rule. All in all though, Seraphon are just an amazing army to get started with in a lot of reasons, but definitely an army to take to your first competitive event. Well, did we miss any armies that you think would be a great army for first-time event goers? If we did, please leave that in the comments below. Also, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to come chat more with me and other members of our fine community, you can do so by following the link in our Discord to come join us there. And also, while you're on YouTube, why not check out my featured channel section where you've got a bunch of other fantastic Age of Sigmar content creators putting out a ton of awesome content. Go give all of them a like and subscribe as well. Lastly though, thank you to everyone who supports the channel financially. Thank you James, AJC, JC, Christian Weir, Philip Ward, Soren, Kenny Lull, Outer and Shot First, Chaos Spawn, and James Crowder. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel. It means the absolute world to us. And if you'd like to help support the channel like these fine people do, please do so by following one of the many links down in the video's description to either our Ko-fi, Patreon, or YouTube members. Thank you all so much once again for watching. Stay safe everyone, stay well, and most of all, keep fighting that war against the Grey. Ciao for now.